Sports Carnival broadcasting live, baby, from the Trauma Center studio, powered by the Recovery Room. Dave and Matt here with you. Mike Byers already checking in with us on YouTube. And boy, oh boy, do we have a lot of ground to cover today, sports fans, Wisconsin sports fans in particular. Shit, Wisconsin was the center of the sports universe last night outside of maybe Los Angeles. Matt, Aaron Rodgers, Milwaukee Bucks, Los Angeles Lakers, topics du jour this morning. We got Matt Janus joining us at 8:30, UWL head football coach. How you doing today, man? We saw Byers talking about the river already. We got some floods going on. You said Miami's underwater. You holding up? Are you treading water?
I'm holding up just fine, brother. It's top of the morning, everybody. Pure blessings. Thanks for joining in, tuning in, or catching us down the road. But yeah, I'm really excited about today's show, brother. We got a lot to talk about. I'm excited to talk to Coach later, a little bit later on.
There you go, man. Mike Byers, like I said, checking in, using some of our meteorologist minutes here. And Mike, of course, was my former national calendar correspondent, part of the two-man inflation calculation committee. Now he's getting our meteorologist minutes. Says, morning, boys. Boy, howdy. That Mississippi River is flowing mightily south of town. Matt, this seems rather localized, but it's not. The nation has been watching the Mississippi River news, like kind of, in different parts, because, I mean, heck, the Mississippi cuts the whole country. This fucking thing is swelling like big time.
Oh, yeah. Well, obviously,
big time.
It starts up north, obviously, in Minnesota with all the snow that they got. Once all that starts to melt, plus all the rain and everything comes down the Mississippi, it just continues to go until it'll continue to do that until, obviously, they open up the dams, I think, closer to, like, St. Louis. But after that, man, it's just going to flood like crazy in this neck of the country.
Yeah. It's, boy, I had an idea about reflooding the South, but in specific ways. And listen, I know we can't do that. I'm no social or, industrial engineer, so I can't come up with that. I do see Jeff Zelke popping up here this morning, too. And, boys, I think we're going to have a lot of different conversation points about the Wisconsin sports stories that, again, like I've mentioned, have dominated all of sports over the last 24 hours. Jeff Zelke saying, ding, dong, the witch is dead. And listen, I don't know if we can avoid just, getting into a couple of emotive responses. I do have a poll question. Well, Matt and I do on our Facebook group page and our Twitter feed this morning to ask you what you're more disappointed about. What was more upsetting from last night? Okay, so we'll get to that in just a bit. The Rodgers trade or the Bucks loss. But I just want to start off with the Rodgers trade. Folks who have watched this program or listened to me on the former radio show that we did here in La Crosse for 6+ years, they'll know that I'm not a fan of Rodgers. And it's not because he's not a good football player in the division in the regular season. I'm not saying that. When you break down Aaron Rodgers' success rate against the Lions, the Bears, who he owns, and the Minnesota Vikings, Matt, you can't argue that in the NFC North, Aaron Rodgers in the regular season has been one of the best quarterbacks to ever play in the NFC North in the regular season. When you extrapolate that out and you take Aaron Rodgers, the football player, versus the field, as far as a winning quarterback goes, he's about above average, barely.
Yeah, I mean,
he's barely above average.
He's maybe top 12, maybe so above average. I mean, maybe.
Cam Newton's been to as many Super Bowls.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Nick Foles has won as many Super Bowls.
I'm sorry, I took it as who's like currently playing.
No,
right
I'm just
now.
thinking like in the history of because we look at this guy as an all-time great because he throws off his back foot. I mean, listen, that's a pretty pass. Well, and the touchdown to interceptions, man, that's a really good stat.
I brought it up maybe a month or so ago. He has now the third worst completion percentage in the state of New York. So, I mean, that pretty goes to show how, I mean, that's Daniel Jones included. You have Josh Allen. So, I mean, he's going to, not only is that, but he's going to the AFC, which is going to be even harder for him because, like you said, he did own the Bears for a while. The NFC was basically his playground. Now he's going to have to play catch up. Now, the Jets do have a good defense, but I don't know, man. I'm honestly more excited to see. I hope this blows up in his face because that's what I'd love to watch.
Oh, it will.
That's what I want to see.
This is going to be an epic failure. An epic failure. Well, I mean, the magnitude of fuck up that is going to happen with this Jets thing is going to be spectacular. The Packers could literally go 0-17 this year. What we will watch from Wisconsin going on with New York, with this little bitch boy going to face that media and that attention, it's going to be awesome.
I'm all about it.
Guys, it's going to be the best.
I want to see how Joe Douglas ever negotiates another contract in the future as well with the Jets, because that's going to be crazy as fuck, because I don't know how this guy's going to ever have a straight poker face ever again in his life.
Wow. We like I said, we have got so much ground to cover on Rodgers. We really, really do. But I would be remiss if we didn't just start off this morning with also mentioning something that is part of our poll question. You take it on our Twitter feed at the Sports Carney, our Facebook group page. What's more upsetting to you as a Wisconsin sports fan this morning? The Rodgers trade or that Bucks loss? Listen, the Bucks last night had a golden opportunity to tie the series, 2 games apiece against the Miami Heat in Miami.
Golden.
They're up by 14 points in the fourth quarter. We're playing bingo downstairs. By the way, huge crowd last night. Thanks, everybody, for showing up. Our friends from the Turbo, Savannah, brought a new set of friends. Well played. Well played. Point is, we've got this game on. We're watching the Bucks collapse in real time. They're up by 14 points in the fourth quarter, 6 minutes left. Jimmy Butler started off the game on a tear. Scored, I think, the first 20 points for the Heat. Scored the last 22 points for the Heat. Jimmy Butler, who we'll talk about, had an all-time NBA postseason performance. He did. Kudos to Jimmy Buckets. Fuck that. The Bucks completely collapsed, Matt. Yep. They completely collapsed. They withered and dithered. There is something that a couple of seasons ago, we really gave Mike Budenholzer a lot of shit for, and I think it was right at the time. Mike Budenholzer made, and this was prior to the championship, some really questionable decisions as far as switching players out, substitution patterns, when to play defense. He basically had a lack of adjustment issue in game.
Okay.
Last night, I'm watching the same thing. When, Mike Budenholzer, do you throw a fucking double team at Jimmy Butler? The guy is killing you. He's absolutely killing you. I understand defensive principles. I do. Really, I do. But you have got to play or fight the opponent that you've got in front of you. And Matt, one of the things that I saw come up last night that I remember talking about years ago was that Mike Budenholzer did not seem to have the coaching adjustments in hand to be able to deal with Jimmy Butler. And this is one of the reasons that I told everybody that I could fucking talk to before this Bucks Heat series that I did not like this matchup. One of those reasons, Eric Spoelstra. The guy's been to 5 NBA championships, and he's won a pair of them. He knows how to win. And this coach out-schemed Mike Budenholzer last night. Jimmy Butler, hands down, unbelievable performance. But it's not like Janus was a scrub. He had a triple-double in his return, okay? This was a game the Milwaukee Bucks had, and they completely lost it. So I know that the team will take the loss. I looked at Mike Budenholzer last night, and I'm watching this, and I couldn't scream because I'm doing the bingo, and I'm thinking, dude, why are you not adjusting this? You've got to throw a double team here. This series for Milwaukee is not over. The Bucks can still win this series. I know it's 3-1. The Bucks can still win this series, but my God, Milwaukee's put themselves in the least enviable of positions. Matt, this series scared me from the start, and this has done nothing to assuade me that this wasn't going to be an absolute dogfight.
Well, you've been saying that since the get-go. You really want them to, take on the Bulls, that's for sure. And what I saw, I think Budenholzer just saw what was going on for the first, basically, 41 minutes of the game and thought, oh, we're going to pull this off. And then you're right. Spoelstra came in those last 7 minutes. Budenholzer didn't have an answer for the Heat, and it was just really sad to watch that slip away. I was watching security cameras, see what was all in there as bingo was going, and I could just see the bar just deflate as soon as the game got tied. It was just really sad to watch that game slip away.
It was unbelievably sad, and we had a couple of our bar patrons, some regulars of ours. They were just crestfallen. And Matt, I'm serious. They were crestfallen. They were into every single moment of the game, and I felt terrible. I see Boomstick Eric from La Crescent checking in, and he says, "Top of the morning, fellas. What up, dude? What the fuck, Bucks?" Exactly. And A-Rod, good riddance. Have fun trying to win that division. No kidding. No kidding. All right, so
I think that's a feeling that a lot of people have out there in the world today.
No kidding.
Especially in Wisconsin.
I really am going to appreciate watching this. So I will give you another opportunity. If you haven't yet, take this morning's poll question, jump to Twitter, go to our Facebook group page. Let us know what was the most disappointing thing from early results. And I'm just looking here at the comments pouring in. The Bucks losing was more disappointing than Aaron Rodgers beating feet and getting out of town. We've also got to work this into conversation this morning because I am a Laker fan as well as I'm a Bucks fan. LeBron James last night, who I'm not necessarily a huge fan of, did something amazing, had a 20-point, 20-rebound game, the oldest player in league history to do so. And the Lakers now take command of that series 3-1 over Memphis. So we'll be back. Aaron Rodgers, what is he going to look like in a Jets uniform? What did the Packers get? What did the Packers give up? Ugh. It's going to be an interesting season. We'll jump into that. Matt Janus joins us at 8:30. Stay tuned. What can I say? The Recovery Room on 7th and Mississippi Street is not only my favorite bar in all of downtown La Crosse, Wisconsin, it's my favorite restaurant in all of downtown La Crosse, Wisconsin. Breakfast served 8 to noon, Saturday and Sundays, daily specials, incredible cocktails, and the best damn wait staff in the entire city. My buddy Matt knows how to treat you right, and that's why when you go to the recovery room on 7th and Mississippi, you're always going to have a great time and a great meal with a great cocktail. So if you haven't been in a while, or perhaps you're just regular and you want to stop in again, make it a thing. I'm there every single week. How about you? All right, back here on the Sports Carnival, broadcasting live from the recovery room. Recov back open today at 11. I know we were closed for lunch yesterday, Matt. We had some maintenance to take care of. It's beautiful. It's a gorgeous place to have your lunch. You could eat right off the floor today.
That's basically, pretty true.
Yeah, we basically had that. Not just basically. I saw Yoshi do that 3 days ago before the cleaning.
Yeah, well, we try to keep it pretty.
Donut went to the ground. He picked it up so fast. It was like
that 5-second rule, man.
Yeah, it was quicker than that. He had reflexes like a jungle cat. He was all over it.
I love it.
So do I. If you want to check in with us, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch, David from the Recov last night, who is a new he's a new subscriber to our YouTube page, was asking me how to check in, and I told him use YouTube, use Facebook, use Twitch. David, good cover last night. So David had some big money on the Bucks to go over 113.5 points. Okay. Milwaukee loses, but what did they score last night, Matt? On a late nothing basket, 114.
Nice.
David was going to be in absolute depressive state this morning, but after the Bucks, because he's a Bucks fan, wanted them to win. But after the Bucks hit that 3-point shot, he became quite elated.
That means that you must have covered the over then, obviously.
That's what I mean. He took 113.5 to go over.
But you also had the over and the total over, I believe, as well yesterday. So they must have covered that, I believe.
Yeah, I don't remember if I had the total was 217.5, and I did say go over. Yeah, you thought it might go under a bit here. But needless to say, David, welcome to the program. Thanks for subscribing and congratulations on that big win. I'll never forget the night that I'm like watching these two older folks just like collapse in their seats, crying their beers, and David was with them every step of the way. Then the Bucks go over 113.5. Yes. Yep. Yes.
And everybody else is just losing their mind. I'm sure I saw my cousins and my aunt and uncle sitting at the table too. And I just saw everybody's face just sunk right down in the bot, like almost hit the floor. It was so bad towards the end of the game, my friend.
Indeed. Speaking of reactions, UWL's Thomas is checking in with us here this morning, Matt. And he's like, did you see the reaction from the NFL live crew? Their faces were Schefter broke.
Yep.
Or their faces when okay. So yeah. All right. Did you see their faces? Out. Yes, Thomas, I did. You put a question mark in the middle of a sentence, so I got confused. But yes, I did see their faces, and it was epic. It was awesome. It was hilarious. And
Mina Kimes stole the show with the look on her face.
Well, Dan Orlovsky too with the what? Ooh.
And he starts trying to write everything down.
Exactly. Yeah. Marcus Spears is just like, and Adam Schefter is like, no, fake news. I'm kidding. No, but this actually happened. Aaron Rodgers is going to get traded to the New York Jets. And listen, I think that when you take a look at what the Packers got, this isn't a terrible deal for them, right? They get to move off from Aaron Rodgers, which is something that we want to have happen anyways. Like the Rodgers thing had run its course. As great as he is against the Lions, the Bears, and the Vikings, this thing had run its course. So what the Packers got for him is not terrible. It's not awesome, but it's not terrible. They definitely could have gotten a few more picks last year. But here's the breakdown. And Matt, then we'll go into what Rodgers might look like and where he ranks in the AFC. Okay, because I want to pick on Rodgers for being such a stupid fuck.
Sounds good.
So here's what the Packers get, and here's what the Jets get. Jets get, of course, Aaron Rodgers. Packers get the Jets number 13 pick. So essentially the Jets and the Packers, as you see, did a pick swap. So the Jets got the Packers number 15 pick, which I
got to ask you that though. Does that mean I have to jump off a ledge or like out the window? Because it actually is 2 first round. They trade ones for ones. So technically, do I have to jump off the ledge or jump off the roof or do they cancel each other out in your opinion?
What do you mean jump off the ledge?
Because I didn't think the first round pick. Remember when we talked with Joe about if the Packers got a first round pick, then I'd have an issue with that. So I'm asking you, my friend, do I have to jump out your window right now?
No, not right now, because this is again, this is a pick swap, right? So
that's Packers, the way I'm looking at it.
Yeah, the Packers move up 2 spots, which is good, right? They can put themselves in a slightly better position, I suppose, with that 13th pick, and then they again get a number 2 pick, right? So the number 2 pick really is the haul for this year, right? The number 42 pick, so that's the 10th pick in the second round. So they do get that particular pick. Then the Jets get this is another pick swap. The Jets get a Packers 5th rounder, where the Packers get a Jets 6th rounder. Now, next year, and this is the one that maybe sweetens the pot for Green Bay, okay? And this is the one where you may have to jump off the ledge for. In 2024, it's a conditional 2nd-round pick. So if Rodgers plays 65% of the snaps for the Jets, so this is essentially injury protection, right? If Rodgers plays 65% of the snaps for the Jets, the Packers will get the Jets' 1st-round pick next year. So that's what the Packers got. They essentially do a pick swap this year and a 2nd, okay? So they move up 2 spots. They get an additional 2nd, not bad. And if Rodgers plays, which he should, barring any injury, over 65% of the snaps this year, the Packers get a 1st-round pick next year. That's not bad. I think that Brian Gutekunst, okay, because we talked about Joe Douglas and his finagling. You're right. I wouldn't let him do a whole bunch of negotiating for me. But Brian Gutekunst and company, they seem to hold pretty firm to what it is that they wanted. They wanted the number 13 pick, and they got it. Now, they had to give up the number 15 pick to get it, but they got that number 13 pick. And the fact that the Jets don't get any protection in this particular deal. Like, say Rodgers doesn't play next year, right? Just plays this year, and that's all. The Jets were, according to reports, looking for some sort of pick protection from the Packers, like get a pick back next year in case Rodgers doesn't play. That didn't happen, and the Jets ultimately were flexed into taking a deal that the Packers more wanted than they did, and the Packers do get that 2024 conditional 2nd-round pick. This is, on its surface, at least, a much better deal than what Brett Favre and what the Packers got for Brett Favre.
Oh, 100%.
This is a much better deal.
100%.
The Packers also got to get rid of that whole salary. So now, even though Rodgers will be a $40 million dead cap hit on the Packers this year and won't be a terrible cap hit against the Jets, I saw he'll count like $15 million this year and $26 million next year. The Packers at least get to move off of that contract. And I know they have to eat some dead cap money, but Matt, it's still at $18 million savings, right? Like, so the Packers can still actually use this as some sort of a bonus when it comes to signing a potential free agent or using something later in the season, possibly for a trade, if they're in a good spot. Again, Brian Gutekunst, many of you don't like him for not going out and getting, 4 1st-round draft picks or whatnot. I think this is a pretty good deal. I mean, how do you like it as far as the setup goes?
Well, I have so many thoughts in my head. Hopefully I can keep them all together. I guess the other thing with Rodgers, too, I think it's also based on whether they make the playoffs or not. That's also some compensation along with the 65%. Gutekunst came out and said, I believe it was yesterday, that said he wished he would have been able to have these conversations with Aaron Rodgers to continue this relationship. And supposedly those relationships did not carry on. He was actually speaking with, I believe his agent is David Dunn instead. So you tell the relationship was already deteriorating there from the get-go. My biggest thing about this entire takeaway is they got it done before the draft, because now they can move forward instead of like what I brought it up. I was thinking everybody thought it might have been day 2 or Friday for everybody that has been tuning in. But yeah, so they got it done. And now both teams can move forward and get their game on for Thursday.
Yeah, this was, I think, a real sticking point for both teams. And I don't think that's really, us just using this as a hot take. That's pretty much what all our experts thought, right? The Packers needed, and the Jets needed to get this thing done before the draft, because you really want to look at the draft as, all right, here's our final, if we're painting by numbers, okay, remember the painting by numbers thing?
Yeah.
If we're painting by numbers, we've had free agency. We know who's coming back from our team last year. We've restructured some contracts. Now what do we do with the rest of our picture? Where are we going to paint these things by numbers? And you want to use these draft picks to do that. So I think for that reason alone, this was a really good move for both the teams in a timing situation, because you're right, it does give them now a couple more days to figure things out. You don't have to do it on the fly in the draft room, so to speak. But overall, I think it's like this. Aaron Rodgers really showed his hand in a couple of ways, right, this offseason. One, he's mostly retired. He was 90% assured that he was going to retire, and therefore he's been given less as far as a runway, no pun intended here, with the Jets than perhaps he would have if he just shut the fuck up and never said that. The other thing, Aaron really did, I think, want to show the Green Bay Packers, and maybe still does, that he's that guy, and going to New York. I mean, listen, if it works,
it's a little Tom Brady in him, I think.
Yeah. I mean, it's sure. I mean, I don't know why Tom,
just goes going from the Patriots to the Bucks and being, hey, it's not Belichick.
Yeah, but Tom, that's the thing. I mean, nobody thinks it was Matt LaFleur.
That
was Aaron Rodgers' success.
Maybe he thinks it's the organization then.
That's what I'm sort of getting at. Maybe driving that point home to Brian Gutekunst and Mark Murphy and Ted Thompson and all these guys he feels haven't given him enough. Well, now he gets to go to a Jets team that's loaded, right? At least that's what everybody's saying on paper. They're loaded. They do have an offensive rookie of the year that, when you think about it, one offensive rookie of the year with one of the worst, if not the worst, quarterback groups in the entire league. That's pretty impressive. They've got the defensive rookie of the year.
Yep.
they've got some horses. They do have Nathaniel Hackett, who I know people think will just be fine and dandy. We'll see. He was so bad in Denver last year. I had a hard time thinking he would get hired again so soon. But there he is, and he did have a couple of good seasons with Rodgers as his quarterback coach or the offensive coordinator, whatever.
Probably helped grease this wheel, too, with a relationship, in my opinion.
I'm sure he did. Yeah. I'm sure he did. And Rodgers gets a little something as far as Allen Lazard is concerned, is familiarity, right? But now let's take a look here, away from what just the trade is and what the Jets got and what the Packers got and who wins this trade. I don't know. I think the Jets right now probably lose this trade because the Packs, they're going to be able to use these picks. They'll build the next 10 years. Who knows how long this guy's going to play, right? And if he's healthy this season, we'll see. But now let's talk about where Rodgers is in the AFC, because while he is a great divisional quarterback against the Vikings, the Bears, and the Lions, I don't know that he's going to have much success against the Bills, the Dolphins, the Patriots, the Chiefs, the Ravens, the Raiders, the Broncos, the Chargers. The AFC is loaded. And I'm just like, okay, jotting down in my mind's eye the quarterbacks that are great in the AFC. Patrick Mahomes, 1.
Right.
Joe Burrow, number 2.
Okay.
Number 3,
Josh Allen.
Number 4, Lamar Jackson. Number 5, you could probably put in number 5 for the AFC, Justin Herbert. Number 6, you could probably go Trevor Lawrence.
Oh, yeah.
That guy had a big pop season. Number 7.
I'm looking at, who they're playing this year as well, too. So I was just trying to figure out who you're going down to. I mean, you're still getting away. I mean, you'd even throw out Tua Tagovailoa when he's healthy. He's still
I'd still take Rodgers over Tua.
I just throwing out there.
Yeah, he's in the conversation. I mean, again, when we're actually able to, and this is just a quick jot off the top of our heads, when we're actually able to think of possibly 7 quarterbacks that are better than Aaron Rodgers right now, younger, on better teams, better coaches, all this. I mean, Robert Saleh's a fine coach so far. Mm-hmm. He looks like he's done a fine job with the Jets, and I can't say that he won't be great. But he's not Andy Reid, okay? That's for sure. He's not even Doug Peterson, who's got a Super Bowl victory, right? This is still a young, up-and-coming coach. He's a coordinator turned coach. So I just don't see the ultimate competitive win here for Rodgers. When you think about the legacy that he was perhaps going to have if he does stay in Green Bay and got them to even a second Super Bowl, the elevation of that because of the Packers' history, the tradition, it being the smallest market team, all of these things, that puts him into the pantheon with the greatest quarterbacks of all time. In order for him to do something with the Jets, he's going to have to defy more odds than he ever has in his career. And this is, again, where I beg Packer fans to slow the fuck down and think about this. The Packers have not been to a Super Bowl in 13 years. UW Wells Thomas was barely out of diapers. Rob Dog was still running his head into brick walls like that kid on Parenthood with a bucket on his head, right? Like, these were children the last time that Rodgers actually made it to a Super Bowl. So I don't know where the argument that he's the best guy for this job really exists anymore. And then, I mean, again, just take a look at the quarterbacks there in that conference, Matt. And I think you might have the Jets schedule up there. I don't know exactly where he thinks the window of opportunity exists. I'm just not sure.
According to ESPN, they have him ranked as the 6th best quarterback in the AFC.
Okay, so that's not terribly far off of where we're at. Think about that. Yep. He was definitely the first quarterback in the NFC yesterday.
For sure.
Like, while still playing in the NFC best. Maybe Jalen Hurts would have been given the nod over him right now. Yep. Okay, fine. But he would have been right in that camp. 1, 2. Okay. Now you're going to be maybe the 6th best quarterback. Maybe. Because listen, if Tua does play like he did at the beginning of last season, and if the Dolphins are able to, figure something out with him, which I still think is dubious. I kind of feel like he's, Humpty Dumpty, and he probably isn't going to go for long. But if in fact he does, okay, there's something there.
Sure.
I mean,
especially with all the weapons that they have to. It's going to be crazy.
This is going to be so fun to watch.
It's going to be more fun to watch the AFC
epically
the AFC
in New
East,
York.
Exactly. Or the AFC North, the AFC East. It's all just going to be fun to watch him do it. The best thing that he's got going for him, looking at this right off the bat, they start off with the Washington Commanders and then the Cleveland Browns. So
are they home games or road games?
They're Washington at home and then at Cleveland and then at the Cowboys. So those are the first 3 games for the Jets.
Loss.
very, very
loss. The defense will eat him up. Chase Young will wreck him. The Jets had a really porous offensive line last year, and they better do something to. I mean, their offensive line wasn't that bad. They actually drafted a young kid, and they've got some pieces out there. But Rodgers, as we saw against teams that had any defense last year, looked like just garbage, right? Remember when the Jets creamed the Packers in Green Bay? And you can't tell me Rodgers' thumb was the reason that he kept getting sacked. Like, that's just not the reason. I think Washington's defense could wreck him. I bet Dallas beats him by 50.
I got to take that back. Those are the 3 preseason games. They start at the Denver Broncos and then at the Raiders.
Loss. Jimmy Garoppolo will show him up, more handsome. Vegas is a better city.
Him against Russell could be an interesting game there.
Yeah, loss. I mean, Sean Payton's going to crush those fuckers. Sean Payton, watch what he's going to do with Russell Wilson this year, because that's how bad of a coach Nathaniel Hackett was. He took one of the NFL's great quarterbacks, and that's the thing. We didn't even count Russell Wilson in that conversation as far as where he should be. I'd still take Russell Wilson today over Rodgers. He's younger.
I have no disagreement.
He's younger.
I have no disagreement with
Rodgers is old. This is the other thing that I find so fascinating. The excitement over landing a 40-year-old. Like the excitement, like, oh, it's new pussy. It's going to be great. Dude, he's 40.
Is he going to show up for the offseason workouts?
No, of course not.
That's the other question. I mean, there's so many questions to know whether or not he's going to be the leader of the team that they actually want him to be, because he obviously hasn't been that guy for the Packers.
So Tom's checking in, UWL's Thomas. He's like, yep, it's true. I was only 8 years old. It's crazy, for real. Yeah, the last time that the Packers had Rodgers be considered a Super Bowl type quarterback, 2011. I mean,
he's got some MVPs to show for it, but he doesn't have any Super Bowl rings to show except for one. So
awesome.
Yep.
That's awesome. And you know what? Just like these awards back here behind me, the best morning shows, they're great at like holding down papers. Like when you need this thing the Super Bowl ring goes here, and you don't get you get to do it that always.
Yeah.
Right there. You get to go right there. And if there was 2 of them, it sets him up in such a different way. And I said this a couple of weeks ago. You know, say that Rodgers didn't make it to the Super Bowl, and that's not the end all to be all in conversations. It really isn't. There's other ways to measure greatness. Jim Kelly took his team to 4 consecutive Super Bowls. Jim, you're in the conversation. That was unbelievable. It was impressive. I realized Buffalo lost them all. Mm-hmm. Those weren't Jim Kelly's faults. I mean, Jim Kelly played admirably in all of the Super Bowls. It just breaks the way it does. But they're there. They went to 4 consecutive AFC championship games and 4 Super Bowls. Mahomes, 5 consecutive AFC championship games. Russell Wilson, back-to-back Super Bowl appearances, right? A bad coaching decision call away from winning back-to-back Super Bowls and beating Tom Brady, taking one off of his record. Mm-hmm. The Aaron Rodgers greatness conversation, while warranted because he throws a really good ball off his back foot and is a smart quarterback, has to be tempered by the fact that in the span of time in which we have seen Rodgers last be that guy to today, there have been numerous quarterbacks to come and pop. And again, we don't have to call out every Nick Foles, but Matt Stafford, Patrick Mahomes has got 2 chips now. Burrow's been to 1. This is not what the Jets think it is. It's just not. He's an old ass dude.
I think he's just really selfish too in the same part going forward. He brought up the in-season MVP or whatever, all this other stuff. For what you and I watched this past year and everything else, he didn't want to take those chances down the field. Why? Because he didn't want to throw interceptions. Yes. He didn't want those going against his personal record book. He was throwing him in the dirt, not throwing the ball at all, or just throwing it away. And once again, the parallel of him and Brett Favre, and he never wanted to be that guy. It's just ridiculous in what's going forward.
Well, that was the meme that I made up yesterday, and I started posting on our social media feeds. It's like, finally, Aaron Rodgers fulfills his lifelong dream to be exactly like Brett Favre. And that, of course, started that we'll be waiting for him in Minnesota talk to, hey, by the way, don't defraud the state of California after you're all done with this thing. Because that would, again, be just a little too coincidental. I see we've got a Facebook user.
I'll give you one guess.
This is Jeff Schneider.
Yes, sir.
All right. So Jeff Schneider's with us here. And listen, Jeff, this is not unfair either. He says, this is Goody's legacy now. How long do you give him, and how do we measure the success of this move to determine whether or not he should be fired? Well, I suppose that's a good. Okay, here's the way we have to think about that question. What are your expectations as a Packer fan? Are they to win Super Bowls? Because if that's the case, then I suppose we need to fire everybody from the last 12 years and just tear down the Packers organization because they haven't done it at all, right? So that's what we should do. Or is the expectation to be a really good competitive team, considering the fact that it's the smallest market team in the entire world, in the entire world, as far as professional sports teams go of this magnitude and this caliber, smallest market in the world, do we anticipate, like, do you think Super Bowls are a realistic thing, or is it that you want a highly competitive team that year in, year out gives you a chance to be in the postseason and a lot of fun memories? Because I know that you live in expectationville sometimes, Packer fans, which you expect things to be like they were in the 1920s and 30s when Yippee McVee and these other, weird foreign names were out there doing two jobs and playing Packer football on the weekends for some fun and extra cash and winning some NFL championships, right? Thanks to George Halas, by the way, for saving the Packers and all of that. So the point is, what is your expectation? Because if it's to win championships, well, okay, you're going to be disappointed forever. Goody's legacy, I mean, come on, guys. The legacy, if the Packers go 8-9 again this year, I'll be like, slow clap. The Packers haven't really been, and we've seen this in the postseason, haven't really truly been contenders for years. And so I guess I look at it like this. If Gutekunst made enough picks in compensation come back for the Packers where they can stay competitive and be competitive, I would call that a win. I don't look at this as, I know that we shouldn't say that because we're Packer fans. I just don't look at this as a perennial Super Bowl type team. No free agents ever want to come to the Packers, ever. The only way that they're ever going to get any players is if they draft them. So they're going to have some more draft picks. Like, there ain't no more Reggie Whites walking through this door. Jesus told me to come here. Okay. Not with 8 months of fucking winter. Okay. Guys are too smart nowadays.
I just guess the one thing that you said, and I know we got to get to coach here, is you said team. And that's the biggest thing, because this is now a team for the Packers, in my opinion.
Yes.
Because now they actually have somebody that's going to believe what the coach is telling them what to do. So maybe they'll have a better chance this year than what they've had in the last couple of years.
No doubt, man. All right, we're going to say what's up to our official real estate partner of the show, former Eagle football player Kyle Cable. When we come back, 36 seconds, Eagles head coach Matt Janus will be here. Your Bears, both you and Matt's Bears, are on the clock coming up on Thursday. Curious to see what his thoughts are about this Rodgers thing, too. Stay tuned.
Now more than ever, if you're looking to buy or sell your first home or perhaps an investment property, you need a full-time dedicated real estate agent who is up to date on all the latest trends and analysis and is ready to give you the kind of service that you deserve. That's why the official real estate agent and the official real estate partner of the Sports Carnival is Kyle Cable of One Trust Real Estate. Whether you're looking to buy or sell your first home, or perhaps you are a seasoned investor, call the official real estate agent partner of the Sports Carnival, Kyle Cable of One Trust Real Estate.
No doubt, Kyle Cable, One Trust Real Estate, the official real estate partner of the Sports Carnival, buying, selling, or investing in real estate. He is my man, and he should be yours. He was a Swiss Army knife for Matt Janus and Mike Schmidt on that Eagles football team. He's just a little ball of energy, and he's smart as a whip, man. When you need something in real estate, Kyle Cable, One Trust Real Estate. Former Kyle Cable coach, Matt Janus, head coach of the Eagles football team, joining us from the office of the Eagles football facility. Matt, top of the morning, dude. Rodgers finally gets traded. Finally. What are your thoughts after you heard the trade details? Rodgers goes to the Jets. Like, how does this work out to you?
What's going on, you guys? No, I'm trying to think. I heard about it. We were watching film yesterday. We had a big day. We had a junior day on campus. We had a lot of kids on campus. And then we had to finish up. We had practice yesterday, practice today. So we had to get kind of the film digested. So I looked a little into what they got. I guess, I don't know. I'm just kind of numb to it because I don't know if I care. I mean, everybody was just like, hey, this is happening. At some point, this is happening. And let's see what the Packers can get, who's going to take on the contract and all that. And I don't know, from the outsider and from a Bears perspective, glad to see that he's out of the North. I can't complain about that too much. And, I think from a Packers perspective, they certainly got, I think what they were looking for and what could turn into. And obviously, if he's their starter, as long as he stays healthy, they'll get the one, which I think they wanted to it. So I think it works for everybody. The Jets got their quarterback. The Bears say bye. The Packers get another second-round pick out of it. They potentially get to move up 2 spots. And so I think everybody got what they wanted. And hopefully that guy gets what he wanted on the way out. And whatever Aaron Rodgers is looking for, hopefully he gets what he's looking for, I guess.
Yeah, I guess. I don't really care about him anymore at this point either, because this saga has just been so tired and so played out and so overblown because while he is and has been a terrific talent, no question about it, the guy is an all-time talent on the field. There's just something missing for me in Aaron Rodgers as a quarterback of the Green Bay Packers. And I don't know if I can even put my finger on exactly what it is. It's much like the it factor in many things. You don't know what it is, but you know when somebody's got it and you know when somebody doesn't. And I don't think that he can't, still have a productive year of statistical football. I do believe that he can have a very productive year of statistical football, but there is something that, at least for me, misses with Rodgers. And that is some part of the buy-in, the totality of the team, the homogenous nature of what a football team needs to become, Matt, and you can speak to this better than Matt or myself could ever do, that I think needs to be present. I mean, you mentioned your junior day. I mean, you think of connectivity on your roster. How would it work if you had one player, doesn't matter if it's a quarterback, being so distant and dissident from the team? Would it work for you? Would that be a recipe for success?
Oh, absolutely not. And it's not even just like from the field perspective. Like you really don't hear too much from his teammates, right? Like I think like Bakhtiari likes him. Like obviously Randall Cobb likes him. Like I think it's like the teammate perspective. At least you don't hear guys like jumping against him, right? And like completely negative against him. So he must have some kind of people either or they just don't say anything because he's Aaron Rodgers, right? And hey, you're Aaron Rodgers. You're the lead, it's your show, whatever. But you really don't hear too many guys. Now, there's been a few, but you don't hear too many guys kind of come out and rip on him. But I just think from an organizational standpoint, from an organization standpoint, that is just hard. I mean, think of, and I try to like reference back to like Brett Favre, and I really I can't remember it now. Like I don't know if I was too young or if it's just so long ago. Like I can't remember what the feelings were with Packers fans when Brett Favre left. Like what were they the same feelings? Because like I think like Brett kind of created that animosity too, but like with Rodgers, like this feels like 3 years of this stuff, right? Or 2 to 3 years of this stuff. And, I look at this now and I feel like every Packers fan that I know is now just like, thank God, good riddance. We can move on. See ya never. Thank you for what you've done. But now we can try to focus on what this organization is about. Like when he first started, making these comments about the Packers and maybe wanting to leave, whatever that was, kind of around like COVID, right? Like before he got that big contract, like, I think that like the Packers fans were split, right? Some people were like, oh, it's kind of, they were kind of mad at Gutekunst in the front office and, well, you're not doing enough. And now like, as this thing is played on, like, it's just been like, okay, like we're done with you. It's been 3 years of this. Like, and everybody has now turned away to now just saying, good, see ya. Thank you for everything, but moving on. So I just think more from an organization standpoint and trying to build around a guy that kind of has that kind of I don't know if it is an ego, right? That kind of ego, and it's hard to, especially with the way he kind of runs his life. It's kind of more of a how do you really know what he wants? And you kind of got to guess yourself. Does he want peace around him? Does he want money? Like, does he want to win? Is it ultimately about that, or is it about his control? Does he want control of the like? That's freaking hard. Like, and maybe his teammates like him, and that part's great. But I think from a front office perspective, especially when you have a star quarterback like that, that's the center of your franchise. I just think that's so hard to work things around and to manage that. So I think, like I said, this thing works out. I think for everybody involved, the Jets get their quarterback, the Packers get their picks, and life moves on. And just like you kind of heard Gutekunst say the other day, I mean, that's the National Football League. That's part of it. That's part of sports. People move on and things go on. And now it's about winning for this year for the Packers.
Well, Coach, I do have a college football question for you, hopefully, before we get you out of here. But I'm just curious, what's your overall opinion on the NFL draft? I mean, obviously, being a Bears fan like I am, but is it one thing that you watch or you really just don't give a shit about it? I guess, where's that for being a football guy? What's your opinion on just the overall process of the draft?
Well, I'm in spring ball, so I'll probably try to tune in. My daughter really likes it. My oldest daughter, she really enjoys the draft and figuring out where like pieces go and who's going where. So we'll probably have it on at my house. But I'll watch a little bit of it, the first couple of rounds. And obviously, like when there's some guys that carry over. Or you watch North Dakota State play a couple times. There might be this, or there might be a Division III player somewhere in the kind of the later rounds where you kind of tune in. That's kind of about as much as I get. It used to be 2 days, whatever it was. Now it's into a whole weekend. So I kind of pay attention, and Matt being a Bears fan, like usually you're just not really excited for the draft because they usually never have number one pick because they've traded away for Cutler or they traded up to move up to get Trubisky. So I guess there is some excitement that we actually have a first round pick, that we've gathered some picks. So a little bit more exciting from the Bears perspective this year that there's actually something's going to happen on day one.
So Rob Dog from Stoddard, who is another one of our audience members that's a Bears fan, did mention to us yesterday, Matt, that the number 9 pick has been fairly lucky for the Bears in their history. Brian Urlacher was a number 9 pick, and they gave us some other names. I'm not as familiar with their history, so maybe there'll be something there. I'll go back to one thing you mentioned about Rodgers and teammates commenting. I don't remember any teammates while they were playing with him making any mention about Michael Jordan or Kobe Bryant or Larry Bird. Now, once they weren't playing with those guys, it's like, Jesus, that guy was a real pill, tough to deal with and a real ball breaker. We're hearing some of that come out of Packers camp now, with these players. So I think it's a lot more to the counterpoint. Rodgers is Rodgers, and you're not going to hear anything about him from anybody because, again, that's Aaron Rodgers, and you're probably going to get a talking to, and you're not trying to ruin your contract status by talking down one of the league's greats. But I do think that for the Jets, they had no choice after a point. They'd painted themselves into such a corner. They had to get him. For the Packers, Brian Gutekunst said the same thing that you mentioned. Look, it was a great run. We respect him. We like him. Where we're at, this team needs to move on, and we've got to turn the page. And so for what that's worth, I want to encourage our folks watching us to go ahead and take that poll question, Twitter and our Facebook group page. Let us know, what are you more upset about last night, the Bucs shitting the bed or the Rodgers trade? Matt, I'll tell you, without even looking at a poll result, I can see that people are more upset about the Bucs loss. You're in spring ball, but are your kids talking about that Bucs loss at all last night? Did you hear about that? Because Milwaukee was up by 14, completely unravels, gives the game. Jimmy Butler took the game, but they kind of gave the game to Miami. And now Milwaukee, who was presumptively the most powerful team in the Eastern Conference, they're in real trouble, man.
Yeah, they are. And to be honest, Dave, we started at 5:55, so some of our guys, only the diehards probably stay up for that one. Only the diehard Bucs fans probably finished that one. I know we had the Brewers on in our house, and they're in trouble. I'll just put that. They're in trouble. If Miami continues to shoot like that, then might be looking at the quick exit.
Jeez. And you know what? That's one of the things that we thought would derail, or one of the things we thought could derail the Bucs. One of the only things was an injury significant to Janus, and that's actually what happened. I do want to go back to your spring football, though, because we'll talk to Schmidt tomorrow. We know that he had his spring football game. You guys do more spring football practices than you do spring football games specifically, right? But with that said, what has it been like for you? Are there position groups that you think are popping? Are there things that you're seeing right now that maybe surprised you that you didn't even anticipate, seeing this early into the season?
Yeah, our Division III rules are a little bit different. So we can't hold a spring game. We get every one of our practices in helmets, and then we get 4 with shoulder pads and helmets, and then we're kind of limited. We can't do 11 on 11 with our shoulder pads on and our helmets on. Like, we're kind of barred from that. We can't do inside run. So we got to do a lot of kind of crossover indie. We do a ton of skelly, a ton of move the ball skelly, put our guys in different situations, doing a ton of special teams right now. So our rules are a little bit different. And that's like kind of the beauty of this Italy trip, is that we'll get, for that, there's no rules for that. So I can have 10 practices of full pads. Here we go. So we're bringing the majority of our team. So our guys are going to get really all that teamwork in, all that. We're going to have quite a bit of scrimmages as we push into that kind of week. We get into our Europe week. So we'll get that kind of on the back end of everything. But really pleased with where our group's at, and really, even without the pads on, really happy with our defensive line. I just think we have we've taken such a growth step with our defensive line. And I'll just tell it, Jack Kelly, I don't know how people are going to block him next year. He is going to be a difference maker. There's a guy that had 12 and a half sacks, and we actually held him out of, he got hurt in halfway through one game, and we held him out for 2 to 3 games. So he didn't even play about 4 of the games, and he had 12 and a half sacks last year. He is pouncing it's like a cat when he bursts off the ball. I've really never had a player like that moves like that. And then we've actually had a really good defensive line class last year that has now grown, that have made the the physical growth that they need to match the skill level that they have. So we're really pleased with the depth of our interior as well as our exterior defense alignment in that group. And then, I think another group is the other side of the ball where we had a lot of questions because we had an offensive line, that saw 3 guys and then 4 guys really that played kind of graduate out of that group. And although we haven't gone to team, we've done a ton of, kind of one-on-one stuff. We've done a ton of 2-on-2 stuff with the O-line, D-line, and to see the way, and it's been really fun for me as throughout my tenure here to see where our offense and defensive line have gotten to and how big we are, how well we move, how well coached we are up front. And because that's the reality, that's where you're going to win football games. Is at the end of the day, it's going to be in those trenches. So really pleased at where we're at as an offensive defensive line. And then, I think we've had 4 really good quarterbacks. Obviously with Kaiser and then Zach Weir, who's transferred in from East Illinois, and then Riley Warzinski and Austin Larson have had really good springs. I feel comfortable playing one of those 4 quarterbacks at any time in the game. I think they've just had a really good spring as well as we look to kind of wrap up our spring ball portion on Friday, and then we'll jump into our Europe stuff here.
Well, and Coach, saying with spring ball going on, and obviously there's a lot of difference between, I guess, the spring session. I guess would you consider the summer session too as well? So going on and staying there, but moving up to D1 is where I wanted to go. Having 47,000 people show up for the Colorado Buffaloes spring game blew my effing mind. Kind of want to get your thoughts on that, and then also, they're at this great purge that they're talking about in Colorado where 18 kids ended up going in the transfer portal. I guess overall, what do you think on that just being commonplace now, I guess, in NCAA football?
Yeah, that's Coach Prime, right? That's what he brings. I think, we have some, we have a couple guys on staff. We actually got to, with their offensive coordinators, the old Kent State head coach. We got to Zoom with him a couple times, and he got when he was at Kent State, so we got to know him a little bit. Their offensive line coach, two of my coaches on staff worked with him when he was at Shadron State, Bill O'Boyle. So it's kind of cool to see those guys and to see because that Dion, there's Coach Prime, right? But then he also brought some really good coaches on staff with them. So it's kind of cool to follow along and obviously follow along with the hype. And then when it comes to the transfer portal, for us, that's a big season for us. We've already been talking to guys in the portal where we're looking. We've talked to the staff of, okay, here's where we think we need to bring in this guy off the portal. And hey, I think we're lacking here. So let's add our depth and see if we can find somebody in the portal, somebody from Division II, kind of the FCS level that's looking to drop down. It's just kind of what college football is. And I think Coach Schmidt will tell you the same thing, because that's initially how we started this all the way back 7 years ago here was working through the portal. And we've consistently added guys at our program onto our roster that have helped us out. And it's kind of a cool experience for me, because you take guys that maybe didn't get the college experience, the football experience that they wanted, and then they come here and kind of dive into our program, obviously help us out. But it's huge for us. And then just to have that. And so our really of these next 3 weeks, as the Division II's FCS schools start having the kind of their exit meetings, and they start telling guys, here's where you stand, here's where your scholarship is, that as guys start going to portal, like we're going to be on it all day today, we'll be on it all day tomorrow. And it's just, if we can add, and I tell our guys all the time, and if I can add and help make our team better, I'm never going to apologize for that.
Not a lot of sleep in your future, it sounds like, Coach.
Say it again.
Not a lot of sleep in your future, it sounds like.
not this next month. Busy month. That's good. It's good. It's exciting. A lot of football. A lot of opportunities to make this program better. So it's exciting.
Yeah, it's a real exciting time to be an Eagle fan, and now I'm just really stoked to see what young Mr. Kelly is going to do to opposing offenses. And again, with the huge schedule this year, you are playing a really huge schedule this year. It's going to be important to have this guy out there doing damage. I'm stoked. 12.5 sacks in 8 games or 7 games or something like that. Yes. I'd love to see what this kid's going to do here. Who knows? Maybe that starts to open up the eyes to people in Division I and Division II, and they're looking at you like, hey, Matt, talk to us about this young man. He's got a lot of bounce in him. He looks like a cat out there, jungle cat.
He's a freak. He was a transfer. He transferred from St. Cloud State. So he was an initial transfer that kind of, when St. Cloud shut their doors to football, and Jack was kind of a football, baseball player. So he's always kind of looking at lacrosse, ended up going to St. Cloud, ends up coming back here, and he's been awesome for us on the field.
Well,
Can I ask, Coach? Got one more for you, real quick, just so I know going in the future, because I know you're a Bears fan. What are your other major sports allegiances? So your baseball, basketball, hockey.
Yep. So I grew up a White Sox fan.
Okay.
Even though I'm from like
Good
kind
call.
of the northwest suburbs of Chicago, so it makes no sense. But I grew up a White Sox fan. I've turned completely onto the Brewers. Like I don't even cheer for the White Sox anymore. I've lived in Wisconsin now for like 12 years. I've gone to so many Brewers games. I don't even remember the last time I've gone to a White Sox fan. I've completely shifted gears. My 8-year-old daughter's nuts about the Brewers. We watch them every night, so I have a blast with the Brewers. Blackhawks for hockey, which has been tough. It's been tough. It's been really tough lately. Let's see what else. I was a Bulls fan growing up, but I like the way the Bucks play. Like I like Janus. I like his, where he kind of stayed put in Milwaukee. Like I like that core that they have. So I will cheer for the Bucks. I know. It's kind of weird. I know that my allegiances start to shift. I'm almost, and I don't hate the Packers either at this point. Like Brian Gutekunst, Mill Hendrickson, like they're really, really great to us. They're football alum, so it's hard for me to hate the Packers. And I know, Matt, you don't want to hear that. Like
I'm all right
because I see Brian and I see Milton. I'm like, they're such good guys. Like I don't want them to lose. Like the Bears don't talk to me. The Bears don't say anything nice to me.
Exactly.
I root for my till, Coach. I root for my till.
It's always different once you start working in it. It just because then you know people, right? You've got friends that end up working on these different teams. So while folks at the bar, and this is why sports are fun. Folks at the bar think it's, a morality play, much like William Shakespeare. We understand that much like an actual play, there are people that have worked on other plays, and now we're just seeing each other together, and we're like, oh, hey, it's you again. All right, this is going to be fun. All right, Coach, listen, have a great day. Go out and enjoy some of this rare sunny weather we've had here in La Crosse and get some of that in, and we'll check in with you next week. The trip to Italy is coming up soon, buddy. I can't wait. I'm stoked for you guys.
Get some sleep, Coach.
Guys. Well, thanks. Good talking to you. We'll talk to you later.
Too. Go Eagles.
Peace.
Hello, I am Don Francisco, and I roast and blend coffees for your pleasure and mine. My newest blend is Vanilla Nuts. The coffee so rich and so sweet, it tastes like the French Alps has dangled its in your cup of java. If you love coffee like I do, then you'll love Don Francisco's with a 135-year tradition. Because at Don Francisco's, if you're up all night, so are we.
Matt Janus, UWL head football coach. Always just such a fun interview, such a great guy. Tomorrow we've got former Eagles head coach, now up there at Northern State, Aberdeen, South Dakota, Mike Schmidt, going to be on the program. Thursday, Green and Gold insider Joe DeGuano will be here on draft day, and we'll talk to Joe about the Rodgers trade, of course, and where he ranks this whole thing in Packers trade history, and what, of course, Green Bay can now do with the number 13 pick, with the number 42 pick. I can't recall what their other second rounder is. Green Bay's got a lot of picks this year, and they can do some fun things with them. Now, tomorrow when we talk to Mike Schmidt, I think we're all going to collectively have to sing him happy birthday. Mike's birthday was yesterday.
Okay.
So tomorrow we'll have to collectively sing Mike happy birthday. And I mean all of you that are out there watching us on Facebook, on YouTube, on Twitch, on Twitter. We're going to have to figure this out and get together, sing Mike happy birthday. I want to roll out this morning's poll question. I've been prompting you guys and gals to take it on our Facebook group page, our Twitter feed at the Sports Carney. What was more upsetting as a Wisconsin sports fan last night? Was it the Packers trading Aaron Rodgers? Because I know that Jeff Schneider, and I'm sure there are others, think that it was a sad day yesterday. Was it the Bucs losing to the Heat with a 14-point lead in the fourth quarter? Which of those two things, as a Wisconsin sports fan, was most upsetting to you? Not even close. On our Twitter feed, 83.3% to 16.7% had the Bucs losing to the Heat as the more upsetting thing. Again, I understand that Jeff Schneider, and he's not alone, out there has some real misgivings about this trade of Rodgers to the Jets and it being a sad day. But 83-17 essentially, Bucs losing to the Heat, more upsetting. That is absolutely insane. 3 years ago, we would have had a complete reversal of this poll. Complete reversal.
I can agree with that for sure. This one's really, Facebook's really pretty simple and to the point, brother. 0% have voted for Aaron Rodgers. So 100% are more upset that the Bucs lost to the Heat.
Well, it was an upsetting game. And last night at the Recov, we're hosting bingo. By the way, thanks for coming out every Monday. We're going to keep doing this even through the summertime, Matt. I'm telling you what, I've got this idea. Patio bingo, we're rolling with it.
Sure.
It's going to be awesome. But even during bingo, as much fun as we're we're gritting our teeth and we're grinding through this Bucks game. The Bucks had been in control for the most part the entire game. They really had. They were looking like they were going to win wire to wire, or at least, early it was, close, but they'd still had leads throughout the entire game. The Bucks were up by 14 points. And then this guy, who you see on your screen if you're watching us, Jimmy Butler, Jimmy Buckets, absolutely went crazy and had himself one of the signature postseason games in NBA history. And I know that sounds trite, but it's not. Butler matched the 4th best scoring performance in an NBA playoff game. Now, if you're watching this on the screen as well, you'll see Michael Jordan's got the all-time record in a loss. Jordan scored 63 in a loss to the Celtics. Elgin Baylor had 61 in 1962. Donovan Mitchell a couple of years ago put up 57. Jimmy Butler ties Jordan, Wilt Chamberlain, and Charles Barkley with the 4th highest postseason performance scoring-wise in NBA history. And the Miami Heat, Jimmy Butler aside, but the Miami Heat are a franchise, a team, an organization that for whatever reason seems to perform, even if they've had middling seasons, when the chips are really, when they're just pushed to the center of the table, when all the focus, all the intensity is on them, Miami seems to step up. And this is another example why the Miami Heat were perfect as far as a landing spot for Jimmy Butler. He couldn't stay with Chicago once Thibodeau left. Minnesota didn't like the kids. Philadelphia, I don't blame him for wanting out of there with fucking garbage Harden and often injured Embiid. But now in Miami, this is like the place for him. The grit and grind, Pat Riley, Eric Spoelstra, just the way that organization is built. And there's no fear for these guys. They have literally no fear. Jimmy Butler last night was one of those guys, Matt, and there's only a few of them that have ever really existed, that just literally put the whole team on his shoulders, took them to the finish line, and beat an MVP who had a triple-double and a Bucks team who, again, was up by 14 in the 4th quarter. This was a bad loss. I don't think the Bucks can, completely be counted out, but this was a bad loss, and now they are on the brink of elimination. That's crazy. It's just crazy.
Well, it just goes to show the Bucks didn't have an answer for Jimmy Buckets or Butler yesterday, which is really bad. What I was going to throw out there is you just brought up the Heat as a franchise. He set a franchise record for scoring in the playoffs. That franchise also had LeBron James, Dwayne Wade. So I mean that just goes
Alonzo
to show
Mourning, Tim Hardaway, Dan Marley.
It goes to show how huge of a game he had yesterday.
Shaquille
O'Neal. So yeah, it just goes to show how well he played yesterday. And the Bucks didn't have an answer for him. They better have one for him for the next game. That's for sure.
Well, yeah, easier said than done. I mean, the thing about,
Budenholzer needs to come up with a plan.
Well, again, easier said than done. I mean, it's like Michael Jordan. Better have a plan for this guy. Better have a plan for him. I mean, what do? He was one of those players. And again, the Bucks, I think, could have made a lot of defensive adjustment differences here. Would it have ultimately mattered? I don't know. When you look at the actual defensive metrics of each guy guarding Jimmy Butler, who guarded him the best, you might say, well, Janus has got to guard this guy. He was least effective against Drew Holiday. Drew Holiday played him better than anybody did on the court. So when Drew Holiday wasn't guarding him, he was going off. When Drew Holiday was on him, he actually slowed down a bit. This is the kind of matchup, though, the Miami Heat versus the Milwaukee Bucks, that I just didn't want to see. And it's like I said last night to folks that were watching and just being so upset. Like, I can't believe these guys are so stupid. This is one thing about fans, too, that always bothers me. You yell at the TV and call them idiots and bums. And then when they score, they're like, yeah, that's my guy. Well, they were just the most awful person. Like if DeMar Hamlin sucked and didn't die, nobody'd care, right? Like, but he died on the field and came back, so we like him. The point is, fans are stupid. And, they call these people idiots and stupid. Oh, you're a bad player. And then they cheer for him. Look, the Bucks are in a bad fight, matchup stylistically wise, with the Heat. Like styles make fights. There are some instances in which you could look at a boxer, an MMA fighter, really any combat sport professional, and see them be more skilled, technically better, all sorts of, things better than another fighter. But for whatever reason, the style of the two fighters just makes such awkward mismatches that oftentimes the underdog, if you will, can be the victor, can prevail in that situation. That's what this Heat team is to me. It's a bad stylistic matchup for the Milwaukee Bucks.
You just said they showed up for the playoffs. They were a 500 team in the regular season.
Yeah.
So that just,
they're without Tyler Hero, one of their top scorers.
They were a middling team in the regular season. Then they showed up, and like you said, they put all their chips in the middle, and they're here to play ball, and they're scrappy, and they're being led by a good coach and obviously a great player. And Jimmy Butler showed that he belongs. Obviously, it's been going for saying for a while, but in the playoffs, he just showed up yesterday and balled out. So
yeah, I would say Jimmy Butler belongs. He's definitely right there. I mean, this is a Heat team that over the last couple of years with Jimmy Butler has gone to an NBA championship, gone to an Eastern Conference Finals, and has been a dogged defensive team in the postseason. Now, their regular season, I think a lot of it has to do with apathetic fans in Miami. They don't show up for games really on time. You know, it's there's a lot to do. It's warm outside when it's not underwater. So there are some of those things that in the regular season, I think that you can overlook and forgive. But Jimmy Butler and this Miami team have done something pretty goddamn incredible. They have become possibly the first play-in team ever in NBA history to win a series. Now, there is another team that is also looking to do that this year as well. And I know that we're up against it, so we got to take part in something called overtime.
Regulation time is up.
What the hell is a flux capacitor?
Engage overtime. Now. P.S. Soylent Green is people.
PPS. Corporate processed food is Soylent Green.
Yeah, it's very important to remember Soylent Green is people. We've got a Facebook user checking in here saying, Coach Budenholzer seemed to be afraid to play his bench. Why not try Crowder on Butler? That's another great point. I don't know why Jay Crowder hasn't been seeing action. I really don't. Goran Dragic hasn't been suiting up. And I can understand that you want to use these guys, you know, in spots in which they may really be needed down the line. But I thought Jay Crowder was a great fit. I don't know where he's at right now. That's a really good question. Who is that?
It's not really coming up, brother. So
okay, doesn't matter.
Yep.
But appreciate you checking in here. So I that's a great question. I think this is something that we talked about. On my
Rick Hamilton.
Okay, Rick Hamilton, good call. Rick, this is something we talked about years ago before the Bucks won that championship. You know, we really had a problem with Mike Budenholzer's adjustments against Toronto. That was one of my ballywicks. I just did not like the lack of adjustments against Toronto in the Eastern Conference Finals. Milwaukee was up 2-0. They go to Toronto. They absolutely had the clear path to win a championship that year. That was the year the Raptors beat that injured Warriors team. They absolutely could have won a championship that year. I thought Mike Budenholzer got outcoached by Nick Nurse, which, again, Nick Nurse now being fired by the Toronto Raptors makes you wonder, hey, Mike Budenholzer, are you really good at making these adjustments? Like what the problem is? So I don't disagree with that. Again, I don't know if there would have been diametrically anything different that you could have done. Sometimes players are just on rolls. Mm-hmm. And when you think about Jimmy Butler, you know, the tied for fourth highest scoring game in NBA postseason history. This is not a small sample size. That's a lot of years in which to draw from. And we've had a lot of great scorers in this league, of course. So Jimmy Butler might have just been on one last night, but I do think that, listen, when it comes time to throw the kitchen sink at it, you throw the fucking kitchen sink at it, which is what this old man did last night for the Los Angeles Lakers. The Lakers are another team like the Miami Heat. The Heat are an 8 seed looking to become one of the first teams, and Los Angeles might be there too, in play-in playoff history to win a playoff series, right? Like no play-in team has yet won an NBA playoff series. But last night, LeBron in Los Angeles versus Ja Morant and the Grizzlies had a historic game. And I know that we've said this a lot by LeBron this year because he set the NBA all-time scoring record. He moved into 4th place all-time in assists. You know, the guy's obviously one of the top 2-3 players that have ever suited up, you know, for an NBA team. But he became the oldest player in league history, regardless, postseason or regular season, the oldest player in NBA history to have at least 20 points and 20 rebounds. You know what else LeBron has never done, Matt?
Had a 2020 game.
Had a 2020 game. So we had 22
Crazy.
points, 20 rebounds, 7 assists. More importantly, with the game on the line, less than 5 seconds left in the game after the Memphis Grizzlies made an incredible defensive/offensive play with Ja Morant going to Desmond Bane to take a 2-point lead. LeBron James takes the ball, puts the, again, defender on his left shoulder, goes to the hoop, right-handed over the league's defensive player of the year in Jaren Jackson, who had just swatted Rui Hachimura a couple of plays earlier, takes it to the hoop on the defensive player of the year, ties the game, sends the Lakers to overtime. In overtime, he scores another 4 points, I believe it was. And the Lakers pull out a 117-111 victory in overtime last night. The Lakers are now up 3-1 over Memphis. If they would have lost last night, I think Memphis wins the series. Okay. I do, because the games now go back. It's like every other day traveling, right? Yep. So if Memphis wins that game last night, they go back to Memphis tomorrow. I think they win in Memphis tomorrow if they would have won last night. And then I think the Lakers are in trouble. Now, I think the Grizzlies are done for, because I do think the Lakers can get one more. It might not be in Memphis tomorrow. It might be back home in LA on, what would that be, Friday? But I think the Lakers win this series, becoming possibly the first team in NBA playoff postseason history to win from a play-in spot. Now, the Heat, they very much have an opportunity to do that. But I actually like the Bucks' chances a lot better than I do the Grizzlies' chances to come back from 3-1. Like, the Bucks can beat the Heat 3 times in a row. Like, that can happen. The Grizzlies aren't beating the Lakers right now 3 games in a row. That's just not going to happen.
Well, the Lakers team is so completely different since they did the trade deadline and everything else. So it's a completely
100%.
different team. And like you said, he went 20 for 20, and it's also the 20th year of his career, which is just crazy that he's going through that. And my other big takeaway from all those stats that he had is he only had 1 turnover yesterday. So he owned that team and the Grizzlies. So it was great to see him come out and play. I've always been a fan of his talent. I'm not a Lakers fan as much as you are, obviously, but it was just great to see, especially at a 38-year-old man.
Yeah, it was. Listen, and the passes that he made last night, because if you didn't watch the game, you might not have seen the passes that he was making were as crisp, as sharp as any that he has ever made in his career. That's the thing. This guy hasn't slowed down yet, right? Like, he really hasn't, that's the surprising part, is that he still seems to have such a lot of, he's got a lot of gas left in the tank, man.
He's taking care of himself, obviously.
My God, like, better than anybody I've ever seen. I mean, at 38 and 20 NBA seasons, he's still able to do things that nobody has been able to do. But the passing that he was facilitating last night was so important. And listen, the trade deadline, you mentioned Rui Hachimura was huge. D'Angelo Russell hit 3 threes in a row in the fourth quarter that were absolutely crucial. And Anthony Davis, who got banged up a bit in that game, wasn't the driving factor. Austin Reeves led the Lakers in scoring with 23 points. That's the second time this series already that Austin Reeves has been like the guy.
And Westbrook wasn't a good fit for the Lakers.
He never was. Yeah. That was a bad idea, but that was a LeBron James bad idea, because the original thought before they got him was that they were going to trade for Buddy Hield and get a shooter. I think the Lakers, listen, they rebounded at the trade deadline. It's still going to be a long road to hoe for them to get into the finals. But I tell you what, right now, if I'm the Western Conference teams, like, I don't want to play LeBron James, Anthony Davis, and these cats. I really don't, because if LeBron James and Anthony Davis are playing their best basketball, they're better than your 2 best players. Like, that's just a reality.
Lakers and the Suns really are looking good in the West.
Oh, I'd take the Lakers in that one too. The Suns have no bench. Like, they have no bench. Yeah. All right, guys and gals, we're out of here. Overtime. This has been fun. Extended session of the Sports Carnival. Always awesome. 11 o'clock, Recov opens today. The boys have worked up. I'm going to give you a little preview. A Mexican special. It's like Taco Tuesday today. Could be really, really awesome. So get down there starting at 11. I'm going to be heading out to West Salem, see our friends at Contractor Supply of West Salem. We'll be introducing them and their message to the program here coming up soon. Have a great day. So glad that Aaron Rodgers is gone. Fuck that dude. Don't forget, take our poll question. We'll talk to you in the morning.
Peace.